Donald Trump has a 12th Amendment contested election strategy up his sleeve. He'll use MAGA Congress to implement it, and it could result in your vote, your popular vote, your electoral vote being tossed out the window, and instead the President of the United States, in this case Donald Trump, being selected by House of Representative delegations from each state, which are overwhelmingly Republican. That's a strategy I'm going to explore right here. You're on the New Legal AF YouTube channel. Speaking of voting, vote now for the channel. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. Bring some friends. Have them do it too. That's early election voting that I can get behind. I'm Michael Popok, and I'm at the intersection. Let's explore the 12th Amendment and contested election. It is a strategy, a doomsday strategy by Donald Trump to steal the election from Kamala Harris. And here's how it works. First, you have to have some sort of deadlock of the electoral colleges, the electoral college certification on the 6th of January, which is presided over by the existing president of the Senate, who's Kamala Harris. There's a couple of ways you can do that. There could be a tie of the electoral college vote, right? There could be a tie and no one gets the required 270 electoral votes state by state. If that happens, or as we saw them try to do, slates of fake electors are sent in, but this time it would be Kamala Harris, and somehow we don't have a certification on Jan 6th, at least under much pressure, and Jan 6 comes and goes without a certification, then under the 12th Amendment, Congress gets together, House of Representatives, and each state delegation, 50 states, gets one vote. And it's based on the results from Tuesday. It's not the existing Congress, it's the new Congress, because they're already sworn in by Jan 6th. They're sworn in, slightly earlier than that. So the voting for the House is very, very important here, because if the House delegations stay consistent with where they are now, just so you know, 26 state House delegations are Republican right now. 22 are Democrat and 2 are tied, and that's Minnesota and North Carolina. And so you vote one vote per state, no matter how big your delegation, how big your state is. That's how the 12th Amendment contested election process favors Donald Trump. Because even though the popular vote he'll lose, the electoral vote, let's say he'd be tied or there wouldn't be a certified vote number, he would win if the Republican-Democrat split between the House delegations stays where it is right now or is similar to it. That's one of their backup scenarios. So we have to see, that's why Tuesday's voting is very important, to see who gets swept into the House. Because if it's the same split, it could incentivize the MAGA to try to use the House to stymie the electoral count certification again. Now, it's going to be harder because they're not going to have Mike Pence there. They're going to have Kamala Harris as the president of the Senate. But they still have to vote to certify. And the electors have to vote, of course, and then it goes for a count led by 2 from the House and 2 from the Senate, who announce the delegation votes, the electoral votes for each. If it goes to a contested election, then each state votes for one of 3 candidates. And then they total it up, and whoever's the winner by majority, simple majority vote, would be the president of the United States. The vice president gets chosen in a contested election by the Senate. So it could be Kamala Harris, but not with Tim Walz. Can you imagine that? Kamala Harris, but with J.D. Vance. I don't think that'll happen, but it depends, again, on who's in control of the Senate. That's why these things matter. It's not just top of the ticket. Yes, top of the ticket is important. Kamala Harris beating Donald Trump, very, very important. But also giving her the House and giving her the Senate, because you can see what's going to happen. Donald Trump has already made clear, and his MAGA have made clear, his MAGA followers have made clear, they will activate on his behalf if he contests the election. No doubt about it. In recent polling, 95% of Democrats and independents say they will accept the results of a certified election and will not challenge it. But that's not the numbers on the Republican side. 80% of Republicans and 100% of MAGA say they will follow Donald Trump's lead. So if he cries foul, claims, fraudulently claims that the election was stolen from him, they will go into overdrive with lawsuits at the state level. Every one of the MAGA secretaries of states or head of election boards or local election boards, they've spent the last 4 years, frankly, putting into office MAGA representatives at the state and local and federal levels just to be prepared in 2024 to hit the button and go to this doomsday scenario. Now, there's ways that there's a tie anyway, that's independent from the attempt to have the electors of each state, who are frankly free to vote. They're supposed to vote for who the popular total of their state says is the winner. But there's a lot of examples in history of faithless electors who sort of make up their own decision, or they're supposed to vote for at least the top 2 candidates for the office of the presidency, and they zero out the second ballot, and they don't list the second person when they're supposed to. So faithless electors is a problem. We already saw faithless, fraudulent electors step forward. So what makes you think that actual electors in states who end up being MAGA won't vote for Kamala Harris when they're supposed to, become faithless, zero it out, and deny her the 270? No matter how many times you run through the count, there's nothing you can do, frankly, with a faithless elector. And Donald Trump and his team know it. So if we have 10, 15, 20 faithless electors, denies Kamala Harris the 270, despite the fact that she's legitimately won each state. And we've already heard the Trumpers and MAGA, the head of Donald Trump's campaign, say that they're going to fight this all the way through somebody putting their hand on the Bible on January 20th, not even Jan 6th, in courts, in legal proceedings. But this is a dirty little secret of the contested election 12th Amendment provisions. You can't do a darn thing with a fake or a faithless elector who doesn't vote the way he's supposed to. So if she's locked out at 268 and Donald Trump doesn't have 270 either, we go to the 12th Amendment. Let me just walk through what that means. If the states fail to certify their electoral votes, Congress has a contested election in the House of Representatives for the president. For the vice president, the contested election is selected by the Senate. Under the 12th Amendment, if no candidate secures a majority in the Electoral College that can be certified, the House votes this way. Each state delegation in the House has one vote. So California, with its 50, 60 representatives, has the same weighted vote as little old Delaware with 2 or 3 or whatever it is. So that's where Donald Trump's, I can win this by a count of, 27 to 23. Because it completely eliminates the disparity in size. The only one place where we do that is in the Senate, where every state has, as part of the compromise, putting it together our federal government, every state has 2 senators, regardless of size, although the House is determined by population and census and to the amount of a total House of Representative members that you get, and you put it all together and you have the total number of votes there. So if now we're back in the House in a contested election, each state delegation has to get together, meet, and pick 2 people up to 3 people on a ballot. The candidate who receives a majority of the state delegation out there, that means 26 or more, becomes the president. Right now, the Republicans control 26. The Democrats control 22, and 2, as I said earlier, are tied. And so if that holds in November for the incoming House, the tie would go to Donald Trump. And that's what he's trying to force. He's trying to force this kind of deadlock. And then the vice president, as I said, goes over to the Senate. If they can't, on multiple ballots in the contested election, pick somebody who gets 26 votes of the state delegations, which was always their strategy in Jan 6th, 2020. That was the John Eastman strategy, for which he is about to go to jail. Then there's an acting president that's chosen constitutionally If by January 20th, Inauguration Day, the President's Succession Act says that it goes to the Speaker of the House, whoever the Speaker of the House is, and that depends on whether it is majority Democrat or majority majority Republican. If it's majority Democrat, the president, at least acting president, will be Hakeem Jeffries, New York Democrat, if he's the Speaker of the House. If not, it'll be Mike Johnson for the Republicans as the temporary president. We as Democrats, as patriots, as fair-minded people want to avoid a contested election. We've had a few in history. We've had a few changes in history because of things like the vote of 1800 related to John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. But this is part of what the Republicans are trying to do, not just in the courts, but to deny Kamala Harris the 270 electoral votes, either through faithless electors who refuse to vote for her on ballots or don't vote as they're required to do, as they should do, based on the popular vote in their state. And these faithless electors, there's very little you can do about it in the courts, in the Supreme Court. And they're going to stay out of it. And so if there's enough peel away of these faithless electors, we get the contested election under the 12th Amendment, state-by-state delegation, one state, one vote. And right now, that would favor Donald Trump being picked by the House. For those that think that this is far-fetched, it's happened at least 2 times in our history. Republican MAGA know it. It's also, we've had a situation where the Supreme Court picked our president just 24 years ago in 2000. George W. Bush wasn't chosen by the Electoral College. George W. Bush was picked 5-4 by a right-wing Supreme Court in 2000. It was a 1-vote win by George W. Bush over Al Gore, who quickly conceded the race. That's why you hear, by the way, Donald Trump say in the waning hours of the campaign, I shouldn't have conceded. He never conceded. I shouldn't have left office is his version of it. They should have dragged me out by my fingers and my fingernails, which they would do. But that's why he's saying that. He's saying that he'll never concede. He'll never leave office willingly. If he gets back into office, he'll never leave again. He said all of these things out loud. And what we need to avoid in a crushing, resounding defeat of Donald Trump, well above the 270, I mean, that's the pass-fail that Kamala Harris needs. But let's get the 300. Let's get the 350. There's certainly enough scenarios that if she is underpolling right now, with the margin of error and the 5 or 6 or 7 of the battleground states go her way, it's an overwhelming victory. I don't have to worry about the margins here in contested elections. But the more that Donald Trump wins, and the more that if this definitely splits, and then throw in the faithless electors not voting the way they should, you got an inability to certify the election on Jan 6th, and you've got this contested election procedure under the 12th Amendment. House picks president, delegation by delegation, one vote. This is, just for peel back the layers here, this is what Donald Trump and his minions wanted to do on Jan 6, 2020. They wanted, knowing that the vote total was overwhelmingly for Joe Biden, and so was the electoral vote, they wanted to send in these slates of fake electors to have them recognized, either to declare Donald Trump the winner if these were recognized over the other ones, or more likely to create a scenario where they were recognized or there was a dispute over which slates should be recognized, leading to the 12th Amendment contested election mechanism, which would have favored Donald Trump, and he would have won the presidency 26 to 23 and change. That's what they were trying for. Right? That was the Green Bay sweep of Peter Navarro, John Eastman, and Ken Chesborough, and all of that. We're going to continue to follow it. The 12th Amendment contested election strategy using MAGA in Congress, who will try to take the lead on Tuesday and control Congress, while MAGA election officials and elected officials out in the individual states try to throw monkey wrenches and sands in the gear of the vote counting process and ultimately up to the certification process. But sunshine is the best disinfectant. We're going to continue to talk about it. You're on Legal AF and on this YouTube channel. Speaking of voting, hit the blue little oval, says subscribe. It's free, but it helps build this pro-democracy channel in collaboration with the Midas Touch Network with your help. The bigger we get on the other side of Tuesday, the more your voice is going to be heard. I'm here as the chief curator, Michael Popok. I do the majority of the content, but I got some other great contributors coming over from the Midas universe and from new voices that you haven't heard from before at the intersection of law and politics. So until my next hot take, until my next At the Intersection, I'm Michael Popok, and I am reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.